Kristen, thanks for that warm introduction. Yeah, although I came from Seattle, I'm from the Northeast. I grew up in the Northeast, so which is good since we only have about 20 minutes. I could speak in my customary quick pace, and I think we'll be good. So I'm going to talk about social media monitoring is dead. I've been in the social media monitoring space for a while, and there's kind of a big change or shift occurring in the space, moving from monitoring or listening to analytics. And our approach to analytics, or what we'll call social intelligence, really gives you a strong contextual view into your customer's experience. So first, a little bit about me. I've worked in the listening space since about 2007 with a bunch of companies on the chart. VML, which is a digital advertising agency, but created one of the first social media monitoring tools called Seer. How many people ever heard of that, right? But they had this really cool map, and maybe coming from the advertising space, we had a lot of sizzle, but not a lot of steak. I moved from there to Radian 6, which I think everyone has heard of and knows, and from there went to what has become STL, with a tool called Technology or SM2, which prior to being in charge of social business at our company, I actually ran that business unit. This is a deck that I put together when I was at Radian 6 back in, I think, 2008 or 9 about the value of listening. All these great things that you could do by listening to social data and social media. It certainly applies today, as much as it did then. However, the difference is, as we saw this morning by all the speakers, the amount of data, the volume of data, the big data, has certainly changed. As a result, as I think somebody said, we're somewhat ignorant of data because there's just so much of it. To look at the industry a little bit, Forrester, has done their wave, of social media listening on monitoring companies 4 times now, going back to 2006. An interesting thing about it, there have been, I think it's 5 companies that have been named market leaders over that time. All but one of them have really left that market and left that space. Some either have disbanded, like Symphony, which actually was merged in with Visible Technologies. Others, have moved into a different path, whether it's Nielsen, Conversion, or even Radian 6 for that matter. So, why is that? And in addition, there's a lot of disruption here going on in that, you see through 2012, significant amount of disruptions, acquisitions, consolidations, et cetera. And I think there's even more so coming on. Right now, there's approximately 150 or so firms in this space. It's pretty crowded. It's moving towards commodity. And, as you'll see, I think there's a number of different factors involved in this. Now, I'm not advocating not listening or using social data, but because there's so much of it, we need to use it in a very different way, okay? And subsequently, Forrester pulled out in a recent report back in February called the 4 Social Marketing Tools You Need, that the social listening category will die, right? And I'll just point out the point in red. The future for listening platforms is grim, right? Unless you can improve your ability to analyze all of that data and turn them into insights and then strategies that will really work. And I think this message is really consistent with a lot of what we've heard already before. To give some time to Forrester's competitor Gartner, if you look at analytics tools, right, we have 4 different types of analytics. Descriptive analytics, which is what happened, diagnostic analytics, why that happened, predictive analytics, talking about what will happen, and then prescriptive, the most advanced, talking about, strategy, implementing actual strategies based on these things. So the listening tools are really in the descriptive or the diagnostic space. They really require tremendous burden on the users to really glean any kind of insights out of it. In fact, one of the things that I did at SDL to kind of really take advantage of that space, we put a listening center, a research center, over in APAC to take advantage of low-cost opportunities where we created reports using our analysts, working, basically 7 by 24 for American companies to provide cost-effective listening tools and reports. But anyhow, here, I'm not going to go through this since we've all, talked about data and our data facts. These are some of the data facts, that I've pulled out, which I think are interesting, are different than everybody else's. There's just so much big data around, right? One interesting point that isn't on the screen is we consume today 3 times as much data, as was consumed by individuals in 1960. And that fact is only increasing even more so, which I think really tells why, the listening tools are really inadequate. There's just too much data that requires too much time to kind of sift through it all and glean insights, right? And here's my little graphic. We have a wealth of data, but a real scarcity around insights. So we have, and this isn't really, I don't want to spend too much time talking about our solution, but for the most part, it's a better mousetrap or an innovative approach which enables us to surmount the data obesity problem, if you will, to generate insights that are actionable and strategies that our customers can take. And if you look at this tremendous amount of data, that as Ryan described earlier, we're still searching for that one data element, that we don't have. Hopefully we can help you find it to generate some real actionable strategies and make an impact. One of the things that we talk about at SDL is you get what you measure. So it's really important then to measure the right things, okay? And what we've done with the social data is model a lot of these unstructured social data conversations that can be more predictive of consumer experience, yet at the same time integrated with other data sources, right? So it's not just social data, but it's other data that you may have available from consumers, from panels, CRM data, et cetera. So from our viewpoint, social intelligence really powers the enterprise. And we can take this social data that in the past we've just been listening to or, kind of hearing about and leveraging so they can really be actionable and create true business value, okay? And social data, really brings a number of different, factors to the table. First, one point I'd like to make is, Gartner has said that by 2015, the only 20% of enterprises will be employing social media beyond marketing or marketing and PR, and those will be the companies that lead their industries in revenue growth, right? So the importance of using the social data for insights and strategies is tremendous. 5 reasons why that social data is so valuable. 1, it's responsive and scalable, right? It's out there, global as well as local, various different topics, platforms, et cetera. You can certainly glean competitive intelligence right through the social data. You can drill deeply, so you have depth and breadth. It's user-generated and unsolicited. It's just out there if you know how to find it. And also, we see it as longitudinal and predictive because you can look back, and based on that look back, you can also predict some of the future. Okay? So we look at the social data really in 3 ways, 3 journeys. The shopping journey, from where am I on the journey, what's going to accelerate that journey to make me want to purchase something, the sharing journey in terms of word of mouth, and ultimately, the advocacy journey. How do I feel about your brand? And we're able to distill all of this social data and boil it down into a few KPIs, whereby we'll come up with scores that measure a client's commitment to the brand, to the product, to the content. And then based on that commitment, we can take actionable strategies around that, that then build out upon a journey, segmentations, and ultimately perform some persona mappings. Sample dashboard is the way we look at it, where we'll look at different averages for particular products, and using this 2x2 matrix, kind of look at, which product is performing above the technology average or the industry average, which is performing below, which is declining or growing. And then more specifically, we can see within here, on a month-by-month basis, specific performance by product, and then based on those performance elements, drill down very deeply into what's causing those elements, and we come up with 8 particular journeys that map to those stages. And you can see on this illustration, product A, for example, is performing at a much better rate month on month, particularly in the last month, than product B, and we can then take action upon that. And then finally, just around STL social. STL is a customer experience management company. It's global, focused based in the UK. These are some of the clients that we've worked with in social intelligence. And we really take a 3-pillar approach to a foundation of our customer experience work between insights, learning what's going on, orchestration, which is the workflow, the governance, et cetera, to form then contextual experiences that really work, and you can implement those strategies. And then with that, here's my contact information. I think they'll be publishing the deck, but it's also available on SlideShare. And I breezed through with 2 minutes to spare. So with that, anyone have any questions?
Yep, we've got 2 minutes for questions.
Yep, okay.
Thanks, Warren.
Do we need a mic?
Any questions? Yep, there's a mic coming around.
Thank you. When you showed the KPIs, like the NPS, that was not from the social conversations, that was from other types of research?
No, actually, that's a good question. And in the brevity, I kind of glossed over that. So the KPIs that we use are actually our own internally developed KPIs from the social data. Although they approximate NPS, we feel that they're a lot more specific to the particular product or to the particular piece of content even, and customer or segment, because we're looking at social data honed in on people talking about product A or product B.
So is it something like sentiment?
Sentiment is a driver of it, sure, but also volume, also the depth of sentiment, and we have some sentiment expert in the room. They'll be talking about that more, I'm sure. But sentiment certainly is a factor, but it's also where in the journey that they're having these conversations. So we'll break those conversations up into 8 specific stages, and then based on whether it's at the entry level in terms of awareness, or finally, say at the last stage in advocacy, some have more importance than others. Okay? Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yep.
Time for one quick one.
Yes, I came a little bit late, so I didn't get the first part. But I'm assuming, since you're saying that social listening is there, I guess, in the sense of, you know, you have all this massive information, and you really need to actually come up with insights. Since there's really a lot, I mean, there's massive information there, I guess one of the solutions to really be more effective and actually be scalable, of course, is, you know, building intelligence, you know, algorithms and so on. Is that something that you're doing? I mean, what is your...
So the way in which we come up with these assessments, right, is by creating algorithms that will look at scores, KPIs, and then also, based on the types of conversations, break it out into the purchase journey or the advocacy journey, right? And then based on that, provide not just contrast the scores from one product to another or one competitor to another, but also break it down where those scores reside in a journey.
Oh, sorry, we're out of time.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we take this off later so that we can give the next speaker his turn?